How's it going, Bianca?
Hello. How's
Welcome
it
to
going?
A/B testing.
Thank you. I was gonna rename the show today. Welcome to Let's Investigate the Drop Game because Brent
It's
was the only one
I
that
wrote it
won.
out multiple times.
Mhm.
Acceptable.
That's good. We're gonna rename the show. Join us every week, Tuesday, where we investigate
I've
why
always wanted to do a true crime podcast, so this is perfect.
why is Brent the only one winning? But no, JK. Until then, welcome to A/B testing. We're happy to have you here. If you're watching in the future, I don't know, let us know your favorite color. Anything you would want to add for the future watchers?
For the future, I want to know comment your favorite color or in chat right now, give us your favorite color. We'll give some shout outs to anybody who wants to share their favorite color. We're very separately, almost like Christmas themed, and it's
my
cool.
gosh, yes.
It's
a little early. Okay, Corey. Yes, the games are rigged. Very excited to be joining y'all today. We have a special guest. We told you this month we're like AI vibes, conversational AI assistants today. But
voice AI stuff all month.
It's just we're just on voice, we talk all the channels, but this month we're focused on voice.
This month we're talking about talking.
Wow.
Corey Weathers picks gold for his favorite color.
Okay, I like that.
Are you just trying to butter me up because of my last name here?
See what you did there. Wow.
Brent's team blue. My favorite color. What's your favorite color, Bianca? I actually don't know.
I'm like torn. Sometimes I'm like actually no, lately I've been into emeralds. I've been into green.
Wow.
I've been into this like emerald green. Yeah, like a deep green. But then I had an era of life when I was very like fuchsia. And then as I've gotten older, I realized the color of my bedroom looks like Pepto-Bismol. So
Pepto Pink.
Yeah, Pepto Pink. Pepto Pink was the thing for a while. But yeah, we're switching it up. What's your color choice?
I'm a big fan of burnt orange. That's probably my favorite. Like a not like a bright orange, but like a little rusty kind of orange.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. But anyways, enough about colors. I'm so excited today. We're going to be bringing on Noah, who's wait, Brent, do you have a burnt orange car? Now I need to see your car, Brent. Share a picture when you get a chance. We're going to bring on Noah Mogil, who's on the emerging technologies team. And he's been building some awesome stuff. We're super excited. He's also going to be taking part in our Twilio Builder Labs later this week to give a demo there. We're really getting him through the paces. He's been at Twilio for all of 2 months, and he's already everywhere. So I'm excited. Should we bring him on? Are we ready?
Yeah, Noah, do you have something for? Well, yeah, we've committed to the bit.
Yeah, but wait, first, hello, Noah.
Hello. I probably shouldn't have put my last name, but I feel out of place. Maybe I should update that.
Well, just the different vibes. No, I usually.
And what's your favorite color? Let's just get started there because we've already gone there.
Favorite color, honestly, it used to be gray, which is kind of sad. But it's evolved into like a gray blue, like a powder blue, I guess.
Like a steel.
Wow. Yeah. When did you observe the transition between the gray to the gray blue? What sparked this?
Honestly, when I left Seattle, I grew up in Seattle, and I just kind of fit the vibe and the norm, and favorite color was gray. And then when I moved out of Seattle, I saw color.
Wow. That is very beautiful. That is touching. Noah, before we even hop into who you are, what's going on, do you have something for sponsored, not sponsored?
I was talking to Alex a little bit about this last week, and I didn't even know you could do this. I scheduled an in-person demo at Apple for the Vision Pros. I've always wanted to try them, and honestly didn't know anyone that had them. So I went and did a 30-minute hands-on demo, got to experience what the future is. I guess it's now. But I am very much a believer now, and I want one of those so badly.
Okay.
But I still can't justify the costs, and I think my partner would be a little frustrated. But it's on the bucket list, and a year from now, 2 years from now, it's probably going to be a lot more affordable.
For sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to do one of those Vision Pro, one of those, because that sounds fun to go and see what it was.
Yeah, I think like my biggest interest in it is around like productivity, and I'm very much like I always research like the best travel setup for engineers or like tech people on the go. And the Vision Pro kind of checks all those boxes with they have a new feature that they released.
Eyes blinking.
I don't know if I could. Yeah, the whole eye thing. Yeah, I don't know. It's funny though, because when I was demoing them in the store, like you could see through, see people because there's a bunch of cameras, whatever, and everyone was just staring at me, but they thought I couldn't see them. It was pretty funny.
So it's so wild to me seeing just like all the things, because there's this has been built in so many different ways. There's like a startup I used to work with that was just building stuff in this space. So it's just kind of wild to just see like
it's evolved so quickly. And I think the big piece that Apple kind of blew everyone away with was the hardware, which they're always good at. And I'm an Apple fanboy for sure. But yeah, I think them entering the scene hopefully will spark some fire in the rest of the competition and have them invest more in that side of things.
Yeah, I think a lot of folks were just way too early. So it's like now it's time is ripe. Okay, got some good stuff. My not sponsored is not, it's me and the snacks. I'm gonna bring the snacks. Today we have Magic Spoon protein treats. Oh, are we getting focused? Okay. Got some Magic Spoon protein treats, chocolate peanut butter. We also have some Cocoa June.
That stuff's really good.
In the flavor vanilla chamomile. So we're going on a very dairy-free, gluten-free vibe today. So those are my not sponsored. So Magic Spoon, it's interesting because they typically made cereal. Thank you. Shout out to Alex. Actually, Alex influenced me on the cereal side. And then randomly at my gym, I was like, my blood sugar feels low. And they're like, do you want one of these Magic Spoon things? And I was like, okay, cool. So yeah, those are my not sponsored items of du jour.
I like that. That coconut yogurt is super tasty. It's a good one. Today, for me, it's this handy dandy label maker. I don't know about this one specifically. This one works totally fine, although I need to replace I have a new ribbon in it. But like, these things are so useful, and they can be really fun. You can do silly things. I just reorganized my whole closet, and all my little electronic stuff's in bins. And I did that. One of my favorite moments was my parents at their house. They have garage doors, but like, there's two different garage doors and you have to like push buttons. So my mom put like near and far on them. And then I took the label maker and I added the next lyric, which is wherever you are. So I feel like these can be fun and they're useful. And then I decided I have this, look at like what's behind me, right? There's so many books back there. And so I'm going to start giving book recs. I'm going to start with the greatest book of all time. Come at me if you disagree. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. This is the book that I've read I probably read the first book in the series 5 times. Like, this is my favorite book. The humor is perfect. It's a pure masterpiece. If you haven't read it, go read it. Have either of you guys read it, Noah or Bianca?
I've read the first 5 chapters and the last chapter, but you're convincing me to read the whole thing now. You
skipped that whole part?
It was for school.
Okay.
Yeah, I was never a big fan of reading for school. But
it's very dry humor, but it's great. It started as a radio broadcast. It's been a BBC show. It's a movie. Everyone's a little bit different, which is really fun. Even the books, even though there's 5 books, they don't always relate. Like all of a sudden, I don't know. I'd say the first book is amazing. The first 3 books are worth a read if you really enjoyed the first one. Books 4 and 5 are a little out there. His other stuff like Dirk Gently Holistic Detective is also very silly if you like it. But yeah, those are mine for today. It's my favorite book of all time. So there you go. And then Brent gave us an impromptu one, even though he's not here, which is this is his orange car, a Hyundai Santa Fe.
I like the color.
I know that's a nice looking car. Not sponsored by Hyundai. Yeah, we'll just cover the little. Can I cover the little logo? There we go. Can't see it. It's not there. Cool.
Reminds me. It reminds me of the Range actually. The Range. Yeah. It has like a similar. That's what it looks
boxy.
Like. Yeah, like that boxy vibe.
It's yeah. Range Rovers are great cars too, but yeah. We got some people talking about using ChatGPT. Yo, GPT, what's that book about? Yeah, that works. Always
essentially
good.
no, that is so real though. No, that is honest. So okay, back to you, Noah. As we went through I'm telling you, we're a not sponsored palooza over here, but we have good taste. But okay, so Noah, like before you even get like deep into all the mix, if you were to introduce yourself to someone, like what's the intro that you're saying? Let us know who you are.
Jeez, that's tough. Honestly, I need to refine this elevator pitch because as I get older and more tenured in my career, it comes up a lot. I'd say at the core, I'm a builder. I love to build stuff and tinker. I like to not invent necessarily, but put the pieces together, connect the dots, build the puzzle. And then outside of that, like I feel like I'm an entrepreneurial / I guess hustler. I don't know. But I always, try and take the hard path and challenge myself. I feel like whenever I'm not learning, I get bored pretty easily. So always try and choose the more difficult things. I find peace in chaos, which is kind of odd. But outside of that, I like to call myself an engineer, even though I'm not necessarily like formally trained. And I'm just a tech nerd. Like I love technology. I love, again, building things and continuing to learn about new things. But yeah, I'd say that's at a high level who I am to like, I guess my core.
Okay.
Nice.
Okay.
And this is your first time on stream with us. This is your first time on the Twilio stream. But you've streamed before.
I have, yes. I was telling Alex beforehand. I feel like everyone had some weird COVID hobby. I shouldn't say weird, some unique COVID hobby, and mine was like a streaming radio show. And so I'm very into music and love listening to music, sharing music with people, that sort of stuff. And I, at the time, lived in an apartment in New York in Greenpoint, Brooklyn, that was on the water and had a pretty nice view. And I learned this later on that the East River is actually the most heavily trafficked shipping lane. I want to say in the world, but it might just be the US. I feel like probably just the US. But you would see some like huge boats go by, yachts, crazy stuff. And I would listen to the radio and basically play music and stream the boat traffic. And there's also a few apps you can use to look up like who owns the boat and where they're going, where they're docked out of. So I would kind of read a little bit about that. I love boats. So yeah, that was my short little, I think I only did like 3 or 4 streams and then I was like, this is too much work. But streaming is hard work.
It is.
I'm sorry. The honesty.
Yeah, okay, I told you it was weird. I prefaced it.
No, it wasn't the weirdness. You're just like, after 4 streams, you're like, hell no. Like, sorry, I'm cursing on stream. Well, it's funny because like we're nearing, we're gonna be at a year, right? And I'm not gonna hold you. The first couple of weeks, I was like, what the hell is this?
I was like, what are we doing? Yeah.
I didn't even like, we were all stressed and then Brent intervened. Brent was like, y'all, no. He didn't say, he said more words than that, but essentially it was just, he got us back in the game because I'm not going to hold you. Like it's just such a different, streaming is such a different world for me. Like it was just such a different vibe. Like even just all these little things that you have to consider. And I'm like, what the hell is this? So anyways, I feel you. But if you want to be a guest, here, you know, an occasional, if you want to bring back your streaming vibes, feel free to be a guest, you know, we'll have you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it.
Okay, so let's see. All right, so we have a sense of just like you got some streaming in. Like I know you mentioned kind of building and products. Like, can you, like product hunt? Like what? Like when you think about this, your product interests. What drives that?
I feel like in my identity, I've always been on the cusp of like the future, I guess, when it comes to technology. I grew up, you know, on computers all day, every day, played a ton of video games. And honestly, video games was my gateway drug into technology. And I know growing up, you know, there was half of the parents that were like, don't let your kid play video games or like limit their usage. My parents love them. And I'm very lucky, but they let me play, you know, as long as I had good grades and didn't get into trouble, they let me play as many video games as I wanted. But that honestly, I discovered Minecraft very early on when it first was, I guess like before it was a game. It was in the like pre-alpha stage. And I started telling all my friends at this point, I was in middle school, like this new game's awesome. They all were like, this is like Legos, it's stupid. But then slowly over the years it caught on, and I actually started building computers to host Minecraft servers that people not only from the community I grew up in, but also around the world could play on. And that was my first business. I actually charged a monthly fee to join the server.
Nice.
And I was in middle school at this point, and that's when I kind of caught the bug of like, this is fun. But that was when I first got like hands-on keyboard experience building things. Everything was written in Java, which I wish I had ChatGPT then. I feel like it would have been very dangerous. But that was kind of my gateway drug, and then did everything. I ran like a duct tape wallet business in middle school.
Sounds about right.
And then honestly, like what really sent me down the path of like discovering new things was the movie The Social Network. I remember after that, my friend and I, after we watched that, we went home and started learning HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and built like little websites. And that to me was like, okay, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And then that has slowly evolved, you know, in university. I went to University of Delaware. I was part of a research team. And again, like I'm not formally trained in computer science or computer engineering. I've kind of just hung out with those kids growing up and self-taught, project-based, that sort of stuff. But I was part of a research group, and what we were researching basically was using the research lab's computing power that would compute like physics, chemistry models in the off hours when they weren't running those models, using it to mine Bitcoin as a passive income for the university. And we actually did that.
Nice.
So University of Delaware was early miners of Bitcoin. And so did that for a little bit. And I was super into cryptocurrency, still loosely am, not so much a fan of all the noise around new technology. What else? I feel like, it's just, but one thing, I guess going back to the product hunt thing, one thing I love to do is just look at new technology, new companies people are building. And I think the common thread I've learned is like to be successful, like you really don't have to have a crazy idea. I think the biggest moat from people that are successful to people that aren't is just doing things and like actioning and building. And that is the hardest part that people overlook. Like, yeah, it's cool to have an idea in your head, but if you can't execute, bring that to market, it's going to stay in your head.
Yeah, 100%. I kind of, I kind of look down a little bit on, not look down, that's not the right word, but like everyone's like, it's a stealth startup. I'm like, are you like idea, like you, that means you can't execute quickly enough to actually bring this thing to market. Cool. Yeah. That's at least my opinion.
100%. But, the stealth startup thing, I know people that have done it, and I think it's more of just like they don't want the pressure of external people asking them about things. At least that's what I'm assuming. But yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
I'm not a huge fan of the stealth startup either.
No, but going back to something else you said, just because it made me think of it, University of Delaware is a little unique and related to University of Michigan because you guys have the wings on your helmets too. The slightly lighter blue.
Yeah, and the way worse football team. That's for sure.
Well, I mean, yeah, different sizes there, but like, I wasn't commenting on that. It's just the winged helmet is very iconic, and we both have it.
I wonder, like, I'm surprised that's not trademarked by Michigan.
I have no idea. I mean, they also started doing it in like 100 years ago. Like it's been around forever.
True.
I don't know.
That is true.
Yeah,
fun fact. I don't know about Michigan, but Delaware, University of Delaware was a. I kind of agree. University of Delaware was a college before the U.S. was a state, which is interesting.
That is a cool. Yeah. That's a cool fact. Yeah. Nice. That's awesome. Did you grow up on the East Coast, or you just went there to school, or you grew up in Seattle?
Yeah, I grew up in Seattle, and then I went there for rowing. I rowed crew all through high school and college, so that's what brought me out east.
Do you still row?
I wish. That's something that I want to do, but it's pretty tough in New York. You'd think, there's all these rivers around, but you can't really take a small boat out there.
It's tennis. It's a little bit of, it's the random ski weekends. It's the equinox vibes. It's just they all the outdoorsy stuff. I'm
pickleball now.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So it's like you'll find all these other things, but yeah, I will say that is one thing I definitely had missed living on the West Coast, which is just like there's just such an array of activity versus I feel like activity on the West Coast, New York specifically, is to be like, look how cool I am.
Yeah.
100%.
So no, that's real. But
Quick shout out to Brian Kelly over on YouTube, who agrees with the thing about doing things, and go blue. Thank you. Anytime someone says go blue, you're going to be brought up. So just little Easter egg there.
Now we don't know, but I think the building part, like, especially nowadays, it's like, it is very easy to have an idea. I just, the bias towards action is just so real.
And actually, this is a good philosophical conversation I want to have. How is this going to change now that you can build a lot of the tech way easier with AI? Now it's very MVP. You're not going to be able to build the full thing, but you can build your kind of like a little bit with what you can get your idea up and running and in front of the first people with AI in a way that you never could do before. So how do you guys think that's going to change this? Like, because action's easier, action's becoming cheaper.
Yeah. But building a good business, because at the end of the day, like, technology is just one part of building, and it's like, can you build a good business? See, this feels like a plug to Twilio, but truly speaking, like, I do think this is where, like, relationship is going to take, like, this is where I think relationship is going to play a part, in the sense of like, are you building great rapport with your customers? It's going to be these like tiny things that are going to be the drivers, in my opinion, that start to like set you apart. And I think like, yes, before it was like great tech, but I do actually think like how you relate to your customers is actually going to be the thing, and how you build your business. What are your thoughts, Noah?
Yeah, I think on the technology side, I think the feedback loop is much quicker now, where you can push out a new feature in less than a day and hopefully get feedback on that directly from your users or potential users, which is super important when you're early on to iterate fast and continue to chase the problem and not the solution. And then I think on the business side, I've had a few conversations with people at Twilio, actually a few weeks ago at SCO in Vegas, but everyone's talking about sales kickoff. Like, what is the future of $1 billion valuation company is most likely going to be a team of like 10 or less now, or 5 or less. Whereas before you would need a team of like 50 to 100 people, maybe not, but I'd say most companies that reach that valuation. But it's like over the next few years, we're going to start seeing $1 billion valuation companies that are 1 to 2, I'd say 2 minimum, but are much smaller than historically they've been, just because you're so much more efficient with AI.
And I think people think the efficiency is often like, oh, we, like we have less people versus like really learning how to build great things with different people. And I think like the more you're understanding, like, how do we build great things together? I think that's going to also be a good secret sauce. I'm glad you kind of brought that up, which is like, yeah, those small teams knowing how to work well together, less of the friction. I do think corporate entities, in my opinion, I could see more corporate spaces having these like super teams. Golly gee, little ETI action. I do think you're gonna have these teams that are just like diving deep rather than just like, okay, we have to go to this leader to get this approved versus like just let people build. So I think that's a good point.
And we saw this in action. We Bianca and I over the last 3 weeks have been interviewing all the winners of the Twilio AI Startup Searchlight. You can catch those interviews next month in March, on March 4th and March 20th during Transform. We'll post a link here in a few minutes. But in those interviews, what we saw was almost like there were different size companies, right? We had some companies that have been around for a little while, and then some companies that are new. A lot of the newer ones are like 2 founders usually, maybe 3 people, maybe 5. And that's all they need to build like functioning products. They can do so much more because they're using AI internally to code and to write copy and all these things. And I was impressed at how much people were able to do with the size of teams. And I think that is just, it kind of, it's exactly what you just said. No, it's that point of like, you don't need a giant team to do these things anymore.
But it goes back to that aspect of focus though. Like I do think when the larger you get, you become so unfocused versus when you're like, I need to stay alive. I need to actually solve this problem. Our runway is dipping. I do think it just puts a focus in a way that I do think sometimes can be lost, the larger you get. So with a little philosophical tangent.
I like that.
Okay.
Cool. And you said you're really into music. Tell me, do you make music? Do you play music? Do you listen to music?
I feel like I've done a little bit of everything. I was in the middle school band for all of like 2 weeks, and then they told me I had to learn how to read sheet music, and I didn't want to invest the time to do that.
No, I'm observing a trend here. You're like, no.
Yeah, I'm all about work smarter, not harder. Like I'll memorize how to play the song, no problem, but I don't need to learn how to read sheet music. So I luckily, since I memorized all the songs for the first like ceremony or march, I think we marched at a high school football game was the first like thing. 2 weeks in, we played hot cross buns. I memorized it all. I was playing trombone. But no, short answer is I am not a musician. I don't make music, but I very much appreciate music. Yeah, I love music.
Yeah.
And being in New York, I have access to so many different venues and artists that come to town. That's one of the big benefits of living in a big city. And I try and take advantage of it as much as possible, but definitely slow down a little bit.
Yeah. Dominic saying that the ETI requirement was musicians. Believe Dominic was grandfathered into that one. Not sure, unless you know anything about Dominic.
You have to add a little improv too. There's a little improv action in there. So you just performance is just really top of mind for the ETI team.
That was part of the interview process.
Any concerts or shows you've seen in New York recently that would like stand out?
I saw a few. I honestly forget the name of the artist. I love just going to a random artist I've never heard and listening to their music. That's how I've discovered a lot of good artists. But I'm blanking on the artist name. But one of the more recent favorite artists, and probably some of the more favorite concerts I've been to in New York, is a band called Mapache. They're based out of Mapache. They're based out of LA, I believe. But they're very much like Simon and Garfunkel meets Spanish music.
I think I've heard of these.
They're so good though.
I feel
but I randomly went to a concert, never heard of them. They played, and I've been a huge fan of them ever since.
Nice. I like that. Sweet. That's pretty fun.
Okay, so Noah, you're an exciting person. This is I think this is probably why we vibed. I feel like we're learning a ton. So one of the things you had mentioned was kind of and we'll go back to our other philosophical questions. I remember you saying like you came from a company that used Twilio products, right? I'm kind of curious around like what are things that you consider like from the other side, right? Like I'm curious that experience. I just would love to get that POV a little bit of just like being a customer and now being in the mix.
Yeah, luckily I joined previous company I came from. It's called Regal.ai. Fairly big Twilio customer now, but early days, I was pretty much the product when I first joined, and largely built on top of Twilio. So I was in Twilio all day, every day, in mainly the console side of things, but I started to really understand the power of what Twilio had to offer. And someone like me, who's not necessarily a developer by trade, like I didn't have access to the code base at my previous company, but I would create a lot of solutions to fill a lot of gaps. And at an early startup, there are a lot of gaps you need to fill. Where we necessarily didn't have the engineering resources to build out. And I leaned on Twilio very heavily to fill those gaps between Studio, which is Twilio's like no code, drag and drop workflow builder, or serverless functions. That's probably my favorite Twilio product. And I mentioned this to Dom, who actually helped build that. But it's essentially like containerized code that you can execute in the cloud. And for a builder like me that was very scrappy, wanted to move fast, didn't want to go through all the red tape on pushing to prod, things like that, I would lean on Twilio's products and services to kind of do the heavy lifting for me. And that honestly helped accelerate not only the growth of Regal, but also ultimately unblocked a lot of customers when it came to like integrations, that sort of stuff. So you can do a lot of really powerful things. I think coming to the other side, what is still difficult is understanding how all those pieces kind of fit together. And that's hopeful. That's honestly what I'm really excited about for this next kind of evolution and chapter of Twilio is AI, and how do you bring all of that together to provide a better user experience and ultimately a better customer experience for not only our customers, but their end customers as well.
Yeah, I feel that my last role before joining Twilio, I mean, I guess it was like 3 years ago now, was I was using Twilio Autopilot in it, like, and doing some texting, even though I was at a robotics company, which was weird that we were doing Twilio stuff, but it happens. Quick product update and shout out. Anyone joining us from Europe, functions and assets has been regionalized. So you can actually run the stuff in EMEA, and you can keep it in Europe in our data centers there. Sorry, I'm way too deep in the changelog these days. But like that was really exciting because I've had people specifically, I think on stream, even ask for that. Be like, when can we actually use this in Europe and not have our data, be moved to US? Because then you have some regulation issues. So, yeah. Stephen Nick dropping the link. Thank you, Stephen.
That's why I was cracking up, because I was like, wow, this sounds very Twilio update of you. It's just, it was just the vibes. No, that's like helpful context, Noah. I think like, it's interesting how much like, to me, I think, okay, when talking to the startups, one trend that we kept on seeing was like, we're looking for a solution, right? Like we're looking to kind of bring our solution out there as quick as possible. And I think that's such an underrated aspect, especially how Twilio works in collaboration with those building. And you're like, I don't want to focus on all the other stuff. Just let me build. And so I think it's interesting to even hear that perspective around like, back, like, yeah, seeing that perspective on both sides. Okay. 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 So, all right, I'm going to get all in your business as we continue here. Okay. So you're on the ETI team. What excited, you don't have to give a politically correct answer. Why ETI? What about that squad and team got you excited about being like, okay, I think I want to be on there. I want to be on there doing that kind of work.
Yeah. I shopped around for about a year for a new kind of job, new chapter for me. And I had very strict criteria in terms of like what I was looking for. I wanted a little like bigger of a company that had more resources, but also still operated like a startup and was quick and agile, and was also on kind of the cutting edge of technology. Because again, like I want to learn, I want to be at that forefront, and typically that attracts a lot of really smart people. And so that's another thing too. Like everyone at Twilio is super smart, which was the reason why I joined. And even so, like when I was working with Twilio as a customer, like everyone I interacted with was very intelligent. So yeah, I think it was kind of those two factors. One, like the ETI team is very unique in that I'm technically a solutions engineer, but I'm in the product org, and we very much operate like a startup. So everyone wears many hats. Like, yeah, I'm a solutions engineer, but I'll help, run customer demos on the sales side. I'll help troubleshoot on the support side. I'll give product feedback to the product team, things like that. Help with marketing, and that keeps things fresh for me at least. And then to the product, the cutting edge products / research side of things, and then the smart team. Everyone I met during the interview process was just super intelligent, and I wanted to learn from them. So that was a big reason why I ended up joining the team. And honestly, one of the best decisions I've ever made. I've loved every minute of it for the first 2 months, and most likely will for the next foreseeable future.
Cannot believe you've only had been here for 2 months. No, thank you for sharing that bit. I feel like the ETI squad, they're pretty heads down a lot of times, and I'm like all the times that we've collaborated with them, it's always awesomeness. Like you said, super sharp, smart group of folks, the whole crew. So yeah, no, that's real.
I feel like I've been lucky enough to work with a handful of them. Like Dom is awesome. Emily used to be on our team, and y'all stole her. It's fine. We still get to hang out with her. And then, one of the quieter people that you're probably no one outside of Twilio is going to hear about, but Brian Partridge is we worked with him on a demo a year ago, and he was so epically good at everything that he did, and such a good collaborator. That team is just stacked with, and we talked to Vinny a few weeks ago on stream in December. So go check that out. But it's just such a cool team, and I'm so I get getting excited about joining all the folks that are on the team.
Yeah, it's just reminding me of how do folks approach innovation. And again, this is from a person who's not in the day-to-day weeds, but I think given how collaborative y'all are to so many parts of the business, because I do think sometimes when you have we're doing research, we're the emerging technology team, it's we go into this corner, we don't talk to anybody, but hey, surprise, we came up with these solutions. And I feel like the team has always been just kind of so embedded in just so many pieces of the business. Folks have come from other parts of the business. And I think that to me really, it sets things apart, right? Just really being 100%. Able to be in the mix and not just in one little corner of the world, of the Slack worlds.
We're almost like a customer to people internally, but also to or our customers are employees internally and externally as well, which makes it super exciting.
Sweet. And then you've how has it been? And you just mentioned how everyone was super on the team is super smart. What's it like? Are there things that you have learned in the first 2 months that you're that you're kind of surprised by, or what were some of the big things that I don't know. Yeah, what were some big takeaways from the first 2 months here?
Yeah, I think for me, coming from the startup world, startups move incredibly fast and will sometimes take the quickest route possible, even if it means, some shortcomings in the future.
Yeah.
And I think, what we've been doing on the ETI team is not we still move fast, 100% we move fast, but being a lot more methodical and thoughtful about what we're working on and what we're building. So it's not just trying to bring it to market the fastest, it's really thinking about and observing what is going on around us and positioning ourselves in Twilio to be competitive, not just in the short term, but the long term. And I think that was definitely a shift in kind of my perspective or perception in terms of like building things. And I did a lot less strategic thinking in my previous role. It was a lot more executing than on the ETI team, which is a good hybrid of both, which is why I love it. But the strategic side of it is, philosophical questions, things like that. What does customer engagement look like in the next 5 to 7, 10 years? And then actually executing on some of those visions.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. I really like that. Cool. I feel like that was a nice segue. There's more stuff about Noah, that I want to talk about, or should we jump into the demo? I'm trying to figure out where we should go.
I think we can jump into the demo and then we can go back to being in Noah's business.
Cool. No, if you want to get your screen up.
Yeah. Let me pop open a new window here just so I don't have all this clutter.
Today we'll be going through are we going to look at your repo from Twilio samples, the Owl Shoes one?
Yeah, we could do that. I was thinking we could start with that, and then because it's a little more visually appealing from a demo side of things.
Cool.
And then we can either go to another demo I've been building, which is focusing on like SendGrid and email.
We could. I feel like email doesn't get that much love from us.
No.
So I think we could actually probably, if you're okay with that, like, I feel like
how about I do the demo of the Owl Shoes thing, or repo, and then I can walk through the other repo. That's still very much a work in progress, but
good.
I could talk through some of the challenges I've been having when working with email, which is new to me.
Nice. We love that.
We also
All right, let me share my screen here.
I was like, we just did a liftoff email, right? Didn't we?
No, we did liftoff video.
Video?
Oh, sorry, liftoff email. I think sorry, I was thinking of level up. Liftoff email. Launched last week. We did liftoff with email. Sorry, Andrew.
Wow. I was like, did you forget everything you did, Alex?
I don't know where I am right now.
Clearly. Do you need to take a stretch break? We're gonna just do a stretch break. Get some
I was on the watch party.
I was
on stream on Friday.
Wow. So no, I bring that up because I was like, email has so many different layers. So I hear you definitely on the I hear you on the all the adventures of email.
100%.
As noted, you were literally co-hosting the watch party. Clearly, Alex. Wow.
Co-hosting the watch party.
Clearly, Alex forgets what she just erases it.
Well, here's that link in chat if you want to go check out the liftoff email video. So it goes. Are you ready for your screen to be shared, Noah?
Yeah, all set.
Okay. Can you make your text a little bigger, please?
Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah. Welcome to Owl
That's good
Shoes.
right there, I think. If anyone wants
do you have a jingle for Owl Shoes?
I do not. I stole this from some other demo that someone else did, but I love the owl theme always. So Owl Bank, Owl Shoes, Owl whatever.
Owl everything.
It makes it fun. Yeah.
We did. Yeah, Liftoff's all about Owl Air. Was this
nice.
Last week or 2 weeks ago we had Brendan Hawkins on, and he's done some Owl Shoe demos too.
Yeah.
We're gonna have
that might have been
this
some of what
too.
I'm gonna go through today. But actually, this I don't know if we want to share it in chat, but
I can do that.
You want me to? Yeah. So one of the big things I've been working on for this sample repo right now, you can quickly deploy an AI assistant from your IDE of choice. And I'll go through why that's helpful to have a baseline, more advanced AI assistant to work from. And then what I'm working on and what I'll show today is the front end of that. So what can that actually look like as a retailer, which I'll go into more detail and more polished demo on Thursday. But yeah, feel free to check this out. Feel free to deploy it yourself. Definitely drop any comments for improvements, things like that. But let's take a look at what I've been cooking up so far. So if I've already deployed this assistant to an account, I configured all the like channel side of things. So chat / conversations, WhatsApp, voice, and then email still on the to-do list. But the beautiful thing about AI assistants is it really showcases the power of many Twilio products, which is very unique for a product. So this particular repo uses Twilio functions, voice, conversations, flex, sync, voice intelligence. What else am I missing? Studio flows. I think that's all 6 products, but a lot of products.
Yeah.
Which is awesome. And it really showcases the power of Twilio and what you can do to enhance end user experience. So if I quickly deploy this web app, again, I already have the backend configured, and this is mainly powered by Airtable as the backend database, which is nice because you can go in here and edit the product listings and things like that if you want to customize it for something else or replace it with your own backend database entirely. So trying to make that as easy as possible. But once I deploy this locally, let me copy this to this screen.
I'm just cool. Going to give you a heads up. I would love to see how you actually like the TWIML that you use to connect these all, because that's something that I'm curious about. So
yeah, I can definitely touch on that.
Yeah, cool. This looks so nice.
Yeah, so we have a little UI here. This is, again, all powered by Airtable. So if I come in here and change this to like Air Max 3, this should, assuming, it 23. Will refresh.
There you go.
I guess I did 23. So yeah, it'll refresh, and again, you can customize it, etc. But as I start to add, do different behaviors, start clicking around, make purchases, that sort of stuff. I'll just make a fake purchase here. All this data in the backend is actually being sent to Segment as different events, both an identify event and a track event. So in your CDP, whether it's Segment or some other CDP, it's super important to track those different behaviors. So in the future, you can use those different data points and events to provide your customers with a better experience. And so as all that's flowing in, I can probably pop over to Segment and quickly see what that looks like. If you're not familiar with Segment, it is Twilio's CDP.
Can you make this a little bigger too, please?
Of course.
Okay, thanks.
And we'll be going into a lot more details on Segment and how you can use it on Thursday, so definitely tune into that. But here we can see this fake user I generated or made a purchase was created in Segment as a user, and we can see different information about them and ultimately that they made a purchase. So ultimately, when that person goes back and chats in for support or has questions about their order, so in this example, I'll chat in. This identity is set to my email, so it will pop up as Noah. Where is my order? So this is using Twilio Conversations on the back end and AI assistants to power the generative part of this. So within the prompt itself, I baked in a check to make sure the user always confirms the last 4 digits of their order. And we'll also use the identity of that person to then triangulate what order they're talking about. So in this case, I'll grab the last 4 digits here of this order. And then in the back end, it's using a tool that calls a Twilio function that then talks to Airtable, passes it relevant information, and then sends that back to the AI assistant to, again, personalize that response. So what would have taken maybe 4 or 5 turns when talking to human, they have to manually type and look up something. Mm-hmm. This is all happening automatically behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And you might be wondering, like, well, AI can't handle everything today. Like, what happens when the user gets pissed off or frustrated or wants to talk to a human? Well, we've handled that. So if you're not familiar, Twilio has a product called Flex, which is a contact center essentially that you can configure and customize for your brand and use it for omni-channel communication with your customers. And what's nice here is you might have a bunch of agents in Flex, human agents, and whenever an AI assistant can't handle a conversation or whatever you prompt it as, it can pass that off to a human, which can then finish that conversation. So let's say I want to talk to a human. then it should call a tool that I built to then pass that chat over to a human in Flex. Nice. So we can see here, we have an incoming chat request for that user. And if I accept it, I can see all the previous conversations that have happened with the AI assistant. So that agent now has context into what's going on, and they can quickly respond to that person and help them out.
I love how it just brings all of our products together. Like, yeah. Talk about one Twilio.
Yeah. And this is my favorite thing. And what's the unique and really the bread and butter of Twilio is not only do you have access to all these different products that you can easily configure and kind of let them talk to each other, but the biggest thing for AI assistants is it's omni-channel. So that same assistant that I'm deploying over chat right now, I can call in right now, call this number, and that same assistant will have access to the same tools, the same knowledge, and be able to perform the same function. So let's try this out. We'll see if you can hear it on my speakers. You should be able to, but let's see. I'll put it on speaker and.
Hi, Noah. Thanks for calling Owl Shows. I'm Schubert, a virtual agent. How can I help you?
Hi, could I check the status of my order?
Could you please provide the last 4 characters of your order number?
Yeah, it's 1234. Oh wait, sorry, it's actually 7355.
Let me check the status of your order. Your order for the Night Owl casual shoes, size 6, was delivered. Is there anything else I can help you with?
Yeah, could I place a return for those? The size was a little too small.
Let me process your return request. Your return request for the Night Owl casual shoes has been processed. Is there anything else I can assist you with?
Yeah, do you have any discounts going on right now?
Let me check for current discounts. We have a couple of discounts right now.
Okay, could I actually just talk to a human, please?
Transferring you to a supervisor now. 1 second while we connect you.
And boom, call comes in, and then a human can take it from there.
That's so cool.
Yeah, so that's just a quick kind of demo of that repo I shared, and I'm working on adding the front end so you can optionally deploy that if you want. But yeah, it really just shows the power of what's going on, and happy to walk through like the nuts and bolts of this behind the scenes, if that's interesting.
That's yeah.
It is so, this is actually one of my things with Twilio, which is like, it's magic. Like we make it feel like magic. And I don't think people like understand like all the things that just went in to that. And then also I think especially for like small businesses, mid-sized businesses, like, I don't know, just seeing the power that you can have just through some code. So it's, you know, sometimes I feel like we make things too magical. You know what I mean? So I don't think people
100%.
understand like, oh my gosh, like this is all that's taking place. And it feels seamless. Yeah.
And the exciting thing is it's only going to get easier in the future with all these new tools, all the work that we're doing internally and people externally is building these things is only going to get easier, which is super exciting for me.
Here's what I also like. Steve and Nick, who's a Twilion, was like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
So cool.
I think before you hop in, one thing that comes up was just like even this like the triaging aspect, and I think it's going back into like how can you spend more time on the actual piece of the business rather than just like someone updating you about like, hey, where's your order? Like, you know, like it does someone need to be helping you with that? But that person can spend more time kind of building rapport, building relationship, and I think allowing your employees to spend more time on the other side of just kind of a great customer experience. It's just we underestimate these like little pieces that are kind of before that. So
yeah,
it's good.
100%. And I think like the best use cases for AI assistants today is that mundane repetitive work that humans are doing today that frankly they don't want to be doing, and you can easily offload that in a cost-effective way to an AI assistant. So like things like qualifying users for a certain product or service, like instead of having a human ask the same 3 questions every time to everyone, you can automate that. Or common support inquiries. I think there was a study that found for retail specifically around like 30% of inbound inquiries are support inquiries are asking, where's my order? And so if you can automate that 30%, which is a very easy task to do, just showed that your team can focus on, the higher value things, such as what Bianca mentioned, customer value.
Definitely. I think the term I've heard before is IVR capture, which is going back to pre-AI, IVR being the like, push 1 for this, push 2 for this. And like, it was a big thing for like banks, like how much could they fit into that IVR? And honestly, it kind of just like, it's a bad customer experience, right? Like it can be a bad customer experience when you are constantly like, wait, do I need 1 or 2? What do I need? And as soon as you could just speak it, and we've had that for a little while, but it's getting better and better and better. It's gotten better. And with this AI stuff actually doing things for you, it's just going to get better. And again, I 100% agree with Bianca. Like, it just is going to mean that when you really need to talk to somebody, you're not going to have to wait as long. It's going to be, they're going to know more about you. It's just going to be a better experience.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'd love to see how everything is wired together. So the assistance is built in the assistant.
Yep. So everything that is in the repo outside of the web component of it, you can technically all do from the console. And so I highly recommend, like when you're starting to build AI assistants and things like that, start with the console. And then when you look to productionize whatever you're building, then move to the API. If you prefer to work with an API or Twilio CLI first, go for it. But this is definitely for, I'd say, the hybrid technical / non-technical person, the builder, I'd say. So you don't need to know how to write code. Knowing how to write code definitely helps take your assistant to the next level, but there are plenty of tools, whether it be AI tools or just existing templates or repos out there that show you how to configure out of the box tools, things like that, like how to book a Google Calendar event, things like that.
Go ahead, Bianca.
Okay. I'm kind of curious. So like, all right, if we're taking this out into the world, right? And for some folks they're like, okay, this is great tech. Who do you feel like you're communicating to at times, right? Like with some of these demos, like how can an employee at a company feel empowered, right? When they see this, like, I don't know. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, a demo goes a long way. So if you're an employee at a company and you have an idea or a use case for an AI assistant, go build that. Spend a few hours building a proof of concept. You can make or generate fake data, whatever. It doesn't have to be legit, but that really brings the wow factor when you're showing other people internally and trying to like sell your vision. So I think first and foremost, lead with a demo, and that typically will get you in the room with everyone, because everyone is interested in AI and AI agents, AI assistant. Everyone's saying this is the year of AI agents. And so typically we're interfacing with marketing folks that kind of own the lifecycle marketing side of things, or lead gen, also like CTOs, even CEOs of companies, and then ultimately developers. So people that either are currently owning the customer engagement stack, whether that's on Twilio or a mix of Twilio and other products, or the like customer support stack, who are owning kind of the day-to-day management of it. Those will typically be the people that will end up rolling this out to production.
No, I love that reminder of like, hey, use this to help like add some execution in some ways to your vision, and even just kind of like, hey, this is a way to bring this to life, and it's like, hey, this is an outlet to solve your problems or what have you. Okay.
And there's I also think like one of the keys there is like this does take this is the kind of thing that like might have taken days before, and it takes hours, maybe. Like you can build something rudimentary if you don't need to like make fake data in less than an hour pretty easily. I remember the first time I did a hackathon with AI assistants, I was like I got like 2 days to do this. And I was like an hour, and I'm like, okay, I think I'm done with the AI part. Like, which is wild. We had some good questions. I'm going to go a little backwards though, because this is the Roberto said, I feel like everyone's talking about AI, but where are the people paying for it? So I'm going to interpret that question as could this hooks up to somebody else's, how does someone pay for AI assistance? Is it through Twilio, or does it connect to their OpenAI account?
Yeah, good question. So AI assistance is really for the people or the builder that doesn't want to own the entire AI tech stack. And what I mean by tech stack, and we actually package that up into what we call an AI constellation, but it's basically the ETI teams or Twilio's opinion on the best, not only the best LLM or underlying provider for a certain use case, and ultimately the agentic framework that powers that. And we package that up as an AI constellation. So that includes content moderation, prompt injection detection, RAG and knowledge retrieval, as well as tool calling. So all that underlying infrastructure for the AI assistance product, at least, Twilio is kind of owning the opinion there and doing all the heavy lifting in terms of researching, benchmarking, and packaging it up into these AI constellations, which this list will grow over time. So the end customer essentially pays for each generated message from an AI assistant. So that covers our costs of the LLM provider, all the underlying infrastructure, that sort of stuff, RAG. But if customers want more control over what they're building in terms of the agentic stack, that's when a product like Conversation Relay would come into play, where Twilio doesn't have an opinion on what transcription or what LLM you're using, what tool calling you're using, that sort of stuff. It's really up to you. But Twilio will handle all the WebSockets and voice streaming and all that other nitty gritty parts. So basically, the TLDR is Twilio is trying to make it as flexible as possible for you to go build how you want to build.
Right. It's. I feel like this is a new thing for us to be opinionated about these things. Even seeing it in other places, like we had a new release that when you're choosing a speech provider in a Gather, like when you're using Gather in a phone call with Twiml, you can just let Twilio pick, and we'll change it based on what we think is going to be the best person at the time. I kind of like being more opinionated because, we do a lot of research. We know what's working. I think it's a mix of being opinionated, but also letting people choose is really powerful. We had another great question that I want to get to, which is RJ said, and I'm going to try to change the view and see. Nope, that's not the one. You're just hidden for a minute. Curious on how the team look at or get customers to buy in to use AI rather than just speak to an agent, as some customers get burnt by simple chatbots, and it's hard to show what an AI can do. And there's a whole stream in Twitch chat right now with Dom and RJ talking about that. So essentially, like, we're trained to have bad experiences with these things. So what do you think is the key to making people be like, oh no, this is actually going to be an okay experience. I should engage with this AI instead of trying to get out of it as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I think to start off, like, I'm not going to be here and say that AI assistants will solve all your problems and make your company super efficient and, world's changing overnight. Like, I very much know, as a heavy consumer of our AI assistance product and working with other customers, is right now, today, at least as we speak, and again, space is changing so fast, that assistants and AI really work well for a specific defined use case. And what we see with our customers is they have a lot of low-hanging fruit. And specifically when it comes to retail, like the question of where's my order, that is eating up their agent's time and increasing the wait time to help other customers that might have a higher priority issue. And so that helps on the business side of things in terms of getting their buy-in, like, hey, we believe we can, automate this, solve this, reduce the burden on your team by sending that work to an AI assistant. So that helps there. But then you bring up like, okay, well, how do I actually know the AI assistant is doing well, like compared to a human and that sort of stuff? And that comes out to kind of the rollout technique or strategy. And we don't recommend moving like 100% of your traffic to an AI assistant as soon as you build it. We recommend running small A/B tests and understanding, at a small scale, small sample size, how your assistant's performing. And then as you start to get those metrics and KPIs that you predefine and build that confidence, slowly start to ramp that up. And we've actually done that internally with some of the products we're building using AI assistants on some of the like go-to-market side. And it all started with a small sample size. Now we gain more confidence, continue to crank that up. And then there's a whole kind of opportunity, and something we're really focused on is around observability and analytics when it comes to AI and AI assistants, AI agents. And it's very much like as you would want to track a human agent, though you want to know those same sort of metrics, because like a human, AI is non-deterministic. So you never know what it's going to say. Then again, we're placing guardrails and stuff. Yeah. So, but you want to have a pulse on that. And that's something we're actively researching and building out on how to actually bring that to market. But today, I'd say most of our customers that are using AI assistants is at a small scale today. It's not 100% of everything touches an AI assistant today. I was just going to say the last thing, the benefit though of those companies that, they might not be getting the full value out of an AI assistant today, but they're internally building the systems and the framework on how to work and build with AI, which is so important right now. And in the future, if you're not doing that today, you're going to be missing out on a lot of opportunity.
Yeah, that's a really good point. You got to start now or else you're not there. And like, RJ asked another question, because RJ always has great questions. If habits are changing around the marketing, selling of AI, and the benefits or convenience embracing AI, I'm curious to hear what you want to say on the no, but I actually have an answer for that too, because we, again, just finished talking to all the AI Searchlight startups, and I kind of found a few trends. One of them was a lot of the people implementing AI or helping their customers use AI are doing so in a way that doesn't totally take away. It's like, hey, we're going to have an AI chatbot when somebody's not available to pick up the phone for a small business. Or it's kind of like that in between stuff, and it's not totally removing the human. And like I think it's like baby steps in that regard. The place where we've seen it wholesale take over is businesses or like use cases where it was just too hard for humans to do it. And like the good example there is in hiring and recruiting. There were several teams that we saw that can give every single candidate an interview because the first phone interview is done with AI. And that changes the dynamic, because all of a sudden it's not about trying to like game someone's resume. It's about like, this is something that humans could not possibly do. And so people are willing to take that leap. So I think it's like, that's a really good question, RJ, but I think it's gonna, in some places people can't do it, so it's gonna move really fast. In other places, I think it's gonna be baby steps getting to the full automation place.
Yeah. And to add in there too, there's been a whole shift around this, I want to say in the last few years, but even more so now with the rise in AI around, and we kind of touched on this a little bit before, but solution selling. And selling solutions and outcomes rather than products or services. And this is pretty prominent in the BPO world. And I don't know what BPO stands for, but if you don't know what BPO is, basically
I think it's business process optimization, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, okay, that's it. But in the BPO world, which are essentially third parties that you'll outsource customer service, support,
business
like
process outsourcing.
Okay, that makes more sense. But there are a few BPOs, I want to say a lot, that offer what they call outcome-based pricing. So instead of paying per interaction or per hour for an agent, you're paying per sale or per conversion that agent has, which typically is a little higher on a cost basis perspective, but it gets the trust of the buyer that they're buying those outcomes and not all the other garbage. And I think we'll continue to see a big shift towards that. in the world, in the market, of specifically with AI agents and assistants on outcome-based or result-based pricing, which I think is new in the sales / GTM world when it comes to selling and marketing.
Mm-hmm.
So many thoughts that I don't even think they're going to be stream appropriate, but we'll definitely chat about this. No, I was like, join us for our after hours in the Discord. But no, that is, I mean, one thing that's actually interesting, which is like, even with the whole, the call that you did, right? Like the example, I'm like, the only time that someone would be like, I hate this technology is if it didn't work. If every time you put, so it's kind of interesting because it's like, we only care about horrible tech when it's just like breaking or it's not answering or it's not, not working. So I think, I don't know. I don't know that people would focus so much on the, like, I don't like this if it's working well. Right? Like I think about email, everything's all in our inboxes, but it's like, you don't care until it breaks.
Yeah.
And then you're like, and then you get.
That's a really good point. And one of the things that is actually baked into the repo I went through, or the demo I went through before, is at the end of every call, assuming it doesn't get handed off to a human, is the AI assistant will conduct a CSAT survey, which you can then use to, in real time or as close to real time, understand how this user or / how your customers are reacting to this new experience. And I do think, these small things are super powerful and impactful when you start to deploy these, in production. But yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah, I love that. So should we get back? Do you want to get back to the demo, or do you have more thoughts?
I just had one more thing. I think what's interesting with this, which is like that reminder around feedback. Like, I think people think we're so much later into all things AI. Like we are. It's weird. We're late, but we're also very early on just kind of defining all these things. So I think even the aspect of just like, you still need feedback. We could still refine. There's still an opportunity to kind of shape the experience. So I think even just like something as tiny as like add a customer survey to see how, like the same way you would probably have a customer survey for your employee, add that for your agent.
Exactly.
So I think I think it's just like a good reminder of just like good practices generally. So back to you, Noah.
So what you're showing right now is the tool where you record the survey, right? I want to let's step back and just like give a brief overview of the different things that exist within AI assistants, because there's tools, there's knowledge, there's memory and channels. So can you just give us a quick run through of these?
Yeah. So outside of the kind of core properties that you'll define, which is, name your assistant, you can give it a business goal, which kind of goes along the same vein of outcome-based analytics and resolution-based stuff. In the future, we're adding more kind of insights around this. Right now, it doesn't do a whole lot. AI Constellation, this is where you can choose what basically agentic package that Twilio is bundling that you want to use to power your assistant. So for example, like the changes between V1 and V1.1, the underlying LLM is the same in this case, which is GPT-4o, but there's a small tweak in the way we're querying knowledge between these two constellations, whereas base V1.1 will query all knowledge available, whereas V1 will let the LLM decide which knowledge is relevant to that context from the user query and pull in just that single source. Or
probably a speed thing.
Actually, we found that the latency is around the same.
Wow.
So our recommendation now for customers is to always start with V1.1. There was a whole internal debate on how we should structure this name and the versioning, which was fun. But yes, moving forward, recommend just defaulting to V1.1.
Sweet.
And then below here is where you define your personality prompt. And this is slightly different than what you would think of a system prompt, because what we're doing behind the scenes with the agentic framework is combining all these different things that your telling the assistant, whether you're defining it in a tool description, a knowledge description, or the context from the user's query or message, and we're formulating a higher system prompt that will ultimately be sent to the LLM provider, OpenAI in this case. So here you want to be a little more thoughtful with how you package your prompt. You don't just want to kind of word vomit and create a super long personality prompt. You want to be pretty concise. And there's actually a character limit here, which is somewhat intentional, that prevents you, at least today, from creating super long prompts. So highly recommend starting simple here. And then over time, as you want to add more capabilities, things like that, define it here. And you want to define things like requirements, core identity purpose, and then just high level, like what the assistant should expect on a happy path, and then maybe some non-happy path examples. So like at the start, run a customer lookup tool, personalize the greeting, state your purpose. Order management, verify the order ID, confirm the order ID, share the status, things like that. So very much is like what you would tell an employee to do if they were doing this job. So keep it concise though, and specific to that given role.
Cool.
And then some of the other kind of core features under the assistance umbrella, one is customer memory. This is powered by Segment, and the Segment integration, there are kind of two key sub features. One is personalization and perception. Personalization is the pulling of data from Segment. So based on my identifier, whether it's my email, phone number, or user ID, it will try and find a matching profile, unified profile in Segment. And if it can find that, it will pull in any relevant events or traits about that user to further personalize that message back to the person. And then on the flip side, you have AI Perception Engine, which is the opposite. It's pushing data back to Segment based on key information the assistant is gleaning from the conversation. So for example, I say my favorite food is Mexican, it will, and the assistant is like an order taking assistant, it will write a trait back to Segment, favorite food is Mexican. So in the future, the AI assistant can use that knowledge, or even a human or any downstream process can use that information to further personalize that user experience.
I will. I'm going to give one warning to people building with this and demoing it. Be careful.
Your sound.
What?
Your sound for some reason was like.
Oh, is that better?
I think you're back though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. If you're demoing this, be careful with the perception engine, because if you want to run the demo multiple times, the perception engine will basically remember that you've been doing it over and over again and change things. So the first demo I ran, I had the perception engine on, and it was like, oh no, it knows what I want to do already. It's not going to be a cool demo.
Yeah, it's a blessing and a curse. Definitely a curse when you're demoing.
Yeah,
I typically turn that off when I demo and lean on a tool to do that. And the good news is, like, if you're not a Segment customer, one, recommend you check that out / join us Thursday. Two, you don't need to use Segment to power these things. You can lean on tools to fill in those gaps.
Yeah, and talk to us about tools now, because tools are kind of like mixer API calls.
Yeah, so tools are my favorite, namely because you can lean on Twilio functions very heavily to do a lot of the middleware type stuff. So tools essentially give your assistant access to third-party systems. This is what makes an agent or assistant super powerful, / gives it the agent / assistant title. So here we're doing different things like order lookup, that sort of stuff. And there are some best practices when it comes to building tools. You'll really want to think of the infrastructure of building tools similarly to how you would build a front-end application on the web. So you don't want to pass like PII, things like that in these tool calls. So for example, I see a lot of customers that will pass in like email, like customer email here, and have the assistant send that or set that variable when it's triggering that endpoint or calling that endpoint. But the key thing here is, what if the user is just like, oh, my email is some fake email or someone else's email, and they're impersonating or spoofing that person. So you don't want to do that. But we have thought about that. So there are different like data points that we're passing or appending to the event on the back end that allow you to access a user's identity, things like that, without having the assistant to actually send that. And I can walk through that in a little more detail.
Yeah.
In a tool itself.
Yeah.
Should we do that now or?
Let's go through knowledge in a second, but just to check.
Cool.
So a lot of the times with these tools, because you could hit an API directly, but it looks like you've built functions, you're hitting the functions, and then that function is doing the API call.
Correct. Yeah, you can hit an API directly, and we do support different like auth methods, but I recommend, I think most of the team would recommend, and I believe Dom actually wrote a good blog post about this on how to prevent rogue agents, which is a great read.
He gave a talk about how AI agents are like toddlers, and you need to lock your cabinet. And having a toddler at home, it hit me right here. It was good. It was a good talk.
And in the future, this will probably evolve. I think the way assistants. Like right now, we're trying to fit a new technology to interact with the old ways via REST APIs, things like that. But I think in the future, with like model context protocol, and I believe that's what it's called, where an agent can interface directly with another virtual machine, things like that, and interact like it would a human, clicking buttons, clicking the UI, that sort of stuff. So
one of my
see what happens.
Parts about these is how simple the input schema is, and that's all you need. For the AI agent to know what to do. Like that's so cool.
100%.
We I know we said like we were gonna peruse around chat. If you have any thoughts on just what you want to see more of, feel free to add that too. Any part that you're like, oh, let's dive deep into. But in the meantime, wherever you were thinking, Noah, that like one aspect that you would want to just dive a little deeper into.
Yeah, let's. I feel like knowledge is pretty straightforward.
Knowledge is cool though. I would love to see how you write the functions there, and then I would love to see how you connect all the channels. Those are kind of the two things I want to see. Jealous.
Yeah, functions wise. So functions is doing a lot of the heavy lifting, not only for the tools, but also connecting it to other channels. Yeah. In the future, we want to be in a place where assistance is more natively integrated with the various Twilio channels. But the good news with Twilio, since it's a builder platform, you can kind of build those, and we're doing a lot of the heavy lifting for you, so you can just kind of copy paste. So it's doing both the channel connections and tool calling, and doing some of the front end heavy work like updating Airtable, that sort of stuff. But if we dive into, let's do order lookup.
Your whole website is built in here too, isn't it? That whole website.
The hosting is just locally, but
technically
I think you can host it as an asset. Yeah, so you could technically do that. I haven't done that yet. But everything else is running off functions.
Cool.
Cool. So this order lookup function, which connects to Airtable to look up the relevant order for a given user and their order ID. What we're doing here is we're setting some variables, that sort of stuff. And then one of the key things that I actually see a lot of customers run into issues here is with cleaning the data. So 9 times out of 10, the assistant will properly format the data. So in this case, 4 digits or characters, but sometimes it will add an extra space, and particularly over voice when it's transcribing your speech to text, it can sometimes input special characters like a period, things like that. And so this simple function is just cleaning up that data. So we can then pass it in a subsequent call to actually fetch it or filter by it. So that's one quick tip if you ever have like data issues with your assistant, just create a simple cleaning function, and that will do a lot of the heavy lifting.
Which also brings something else up, which you mentioned, not sending email. Another problem is AI is really, really bad at transcribing an email address.
It's true.
Like shockingly bad. They can't figure it out. Yeah.
The good news there, and we actually, I think a blog post is coming, but we've done a lot of benchmarking internally. The voice team has on transcription providers and accuracy and benchmarking them. And it's really interesting to see how the different providers perform when it comes to things like numbers, emails, addresses, street names, accents, things like that. And the good news is, like all things AI and technology, is it's getting much better. And I think DeepGram just launched their Nova 3 model, which is supposedly blowing everything out of the park. So I'm excited to start testing that internally. So yeah, more to come there.
Sweet.
And then moving down here, and this is common in all the tools, is the extract and validate the X identity header. So this is one of those properties that we're sending on every tool call event that contains the user identity, which you ultimately set when you initiate a new session with an assistant. If you're using some of these functions to connect the channels, whether it's conversations, SMS, voice, we'll do that for you, but we'll always prepend it with the channel prefix, whether it's email, phone, etc., WhatsApp. And then we're essentially extracting that information to then use that in downstream calls to get the user identity. So you can see here, email, user ID, it's pulling off the field and pulling the actual value and what that looks like. But we're just
straight up pulling that from Segment, where the AI isn't passing that through. Or
so for Segment?
No, how are you getting the email or the phone or the WhatsApp?
Yeah, good question. So that is essentially set either automatically by the assistant, the way you configure it, or you as a developer can set that as a specified value. Okay. So ultimately the builder has control over how that value is set and what it's set to.
Cool. Nice.
Cool. And then if I just quickly look at some of these previous conversations, we can see the phone or the
voice.
The phone. Yeah, exactly. So it starts with phone, then my phone number, the chat was user ID, and the user ID in this case was my email, et cetera, et cetera. And then some of the other things we're doing on the session ID, which is another default header we're always passing, which comes into play when you're trying to connect it with various channels, is for voice, we'll always pass in the call SID, which is super helpful if you want to, create a conference call, transfer someone, that sort of stuff, because you can just create a Twilio function to update that call. And then same thing on the conversation side, we're passing the conversation service and conversation ID.
Nice. No, the next thing I was going to ask you is, can you show how it hooks up to channels?
Yeah. So channels piece, again, a lot of that heavy lifting is done by functions. So it really depends on the channel, but let's start with voice.
Yeah.
So voice, you can actually configure with just a basic TWIML bin, which, is super easy to get it set up out of the box. And we have some examples in our dev docs that show you how to do that. A little more advanced way is either using a studio if you want, more IVR-like experience in front of the user experience, or use a function. In this case, I'm using a function which ultimately has a TWIML embedded in it. The reason I'm using a function here is to dynamically pass the user information. That's one kind of gap on the voice side, is this welcome greeting is actually happening before we connect the user to an assistant. So we're pulling that from the database in the function and then dynamically passing that in the TWIML bin. And then here we're also setting, I guess I have another one that appends the voice intel service so we can transcribe that call. But this is what the function looks like. And then you would just point the phone number that you want tied to that assistant to that function. So whenever it executes, that function is triggered and subsequent TWIML bin. Or TWIML, I should say. And then on the SMS side, if you don't want to go the conversations route, it's pretty simple actually. And I'll go back to functions here. But all I need to do is, once you deploy this code or this repo, is take the incoming tool here, copy the URL, and you'll paste that to as a webhook on the messaging service here. So if you go to integrations,
so the messaging service knows to hit your assistant.
Yeah, or I think it's under settings actually. Settings, no.
I feel like
it's under services, and then you do it in there.
I was like, honestly,
they moved it around.
I'm always scared of SMS because of A2P. So I typically always demo with WhatsApp or chat. But yeah, you would just paste, I think it's just here, the webhook there. So whenever an incoming message comes in, it will trigger that function that we built to create or basically connect it to the assistant.
Yeah.
And then conversations, very similar. We'll go to manage services, click on, I have it configured for Flex here. And then under webhooks here as well for the post event, we can see it's again pointing to a Twilio function and the on message add. And then we just add the assistant ID here. And then we always want to make sure we check off on message added. So whenever this event is fired, it will trigger this URL or function, which will ultimately connect that conversation to an assistant.
Stephen Nick asked a question. He said, so the assistant's responses are able to parse what kind of webhook it received and respond accordingly.
Yes and no. So what, like, you could still have a response that, you know, for example, something we've actually seen on the voice side of things is like when I ask for products on sale, it will say back the response. It will be like, you know, 1 star this product. So we're working on that side of things. So it's not necessarily channel dependent, but we are doing some things on the back end to specify the responses per channel, but we need to do a little more fine tuning there for sure.
But it knows what channel to continue communicating on, right?
Correct. Yes. Yeah. And that is all because of the session ID.
I got it.
Which tells it.
Channel.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm going to throw a link here. These are the docs that have the quick deploy stuff. And then also there's an explanation for how to connect it to conversations, SMS and WhatsApp, voice, or a website with React. So those are kind of the channels that we have going right now. So check that out if you're curious.
How, question for you, Noah. How do you see, what is it? How do you see video playing into all these, how do you see video playing into the experience? I'm kind of curious your thoughts.
Yeah, we've actually had some team members on the AI Majors group, which is basically people across Twilio that are interested in AI and want to be a resource to other Twilions. But someone, his name's Paul Heath, if you know who he is, he's a solutions engineer. He built a AI agent, a virtual agent using Twilio video in a service or a company called HeyGen, which is like virtual avatars, and using Conversation Relay as the conduit for the voice streaming. So it was really cool to see that he used a bunch of other Twilio products, but namely video and Conversation Relay. And there was a virtual assistant very similar to this one that was on a video call with him.
This stuff's wild.
Yeah,
it is. I mean,
like crazy.
It's kind of crazy. The first thing I thought about was just like, it would be interesting to see, what is it? I could see that in like the kids toy space. Like, I don't know. I feel like there might be some interesting ways in which like, how are children interacting with stuff? Because I think like, whereas, you know, us adults, we might be like, you know, I don't care for this, but I could see like a child's interacting with that level of technology, it just in a different way. So that'll be interesting. I don't know why I thought about like toys or what have you, but like even instructional videos, like having that run through a thing. Interesting.
Well, I think one of the interesting things there too, though, would be how much info about the video is the AI seeing, right? Like, is it just a voice that's getting passed through and it doesn't care what you look like on video? Or is there something like, because that's a lot of data. Yeah. And there's some of these omni or like multimodal AI agents can start to do that. But
I do. RJ added something like video screen share. I think people have been trying to do that for like so long, but I do think maybe we might be ready for that kind of level of, hey, troubleshoot, especially if just like the assistant knows what a web page should look like, can spot out like, hey, no, this is off. Do you have this clicked? It's like, how do you use existing data to kind of, so it doesn't feel like you need to give me more for me to help you, but rather like, what data do you already have? And it might just not, it might be more specialized. Like, I wonder, it's kind of interesting. I don't know. One thing that, I mean, maybe the initial thing that comes to mind is just like, maybe you could start off with just like docs, APIs. We're in a good place. We're in a good place to try that. But like, even just starting it off in a place of just like, for someone building stuff, I think there's an aspect of like, for folks building, how do I show up in that process? Interesting.
100%.
Okay. This was not on the list of questions to ask you, but like, how are you feeling about like just the balance, like the ethics, the like, what's top of mind for you, like Noah, as you're thinking about like all these things? I'm just kind of curious where your head's at.
Yeah, I'm very much, is the word naive? I don't know, when it comes to AI and like AI agents. Like, I'm not in the school of thought that they're gonna take over the world and things like that. Although things I've been seeing recently like challenge that thought, but I do think it's important. And we actually do have Vinny, who is on the show. Like, he's very passionate about that, which is awesome. And he definitely like shed some light on like some of the things we're doing and thinking about, which I never really did. But ultimately, like, it comes down to providing a better customer experience. And so if you're not thinking about things that will ultimately enhance that, that's not good. So the safety and trust and all that sort of stuff is a piece of that. And I actually didn't know this. I went to school with someone who recently got let go from OpenAI, who was like a top safety researcher. So I've been meaning to reach out to him, but I know some of the bigger companies, largely OpenAI, have kind of taken a different direction, or at least they're focusing more on speed, back to the speed thing, and shipping things fast, and potentially not thinking about the long term, which it's tough. Like, I get their position, especially when you have board members to please and that sort of stuff. Like, a lot of cooks in the kitchen, but I do think it's important, and it's definitely, like, full transparency, not an area I'm super interested in, because it's very like complex and very nuanced, and I frankly just haven't taken the time to deep dive into it. But I trust people like Vinny to provide the best recommendations and that sort of stuff for us internally. So we're in good hands.
Yeah, I think, but it's so interesting because I think everyone feels like someone should be like the AI ethics advocate, but like you just brought up ethics in another way, which is like, is this focused on the customer? Now, if this is focusing on building your data layer, I don't know. But if you're focused on like, hey, am I building out a great customer experience? Like, that is a guide. That is a set of constraints. And I think sometimes we can make building good, ethical, building thoughtful products so more intense than it needs to be. Like, I'm not asking you to be a security advocate, but like, I do think just like a consciousness as we build, like, and I think consciousness can be found in every space. So like, I don't know. 100%. I think that's,
Yeah. I think that's a good point.
Good points.
Yeah. Not everything's in like a moral, ethical dilemma. Like, at some point, it's just like, what do I need to do to make this better for people? Cool. No, we've got a few final questions for you that dig a little deeper. You ready? Okay.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Is it the stream of consciousness?
Yeah. Why do you build?
Why do I build? Where my mind went was, I'm a people pleaser. I like to make people happy. And
That's real.
Yeah. Like, honestly, that's what motivates me, is making customers happy, making other team members happy, successful. Because I'm very much a believer, if you're doing good, it will come around. And so I think that's one piece. And then the second piece is I've never been like the smartest in the room. I was never a super great student in school, never, did crazy things academically. But one thing that I feel like I've always had is like I work hard, and I attribute a lot of that to growing up, and like my parents, they both worked a lot, which is, I appreciate. And then also rowing, pretty competitively, that basically made me super competitive. And so for me, where I think I drive the most value is doing the hands-on keyboard stuff, taking action, and like taking ideas and bringing them to, production or close to it. That being said, I still like coming up with ideas and like thinking about stuff. But I'm very much like an executor. And that's why I think I like building, because when you're building, you're executing.
I love that. I love knowing kind of where you fit in. And what product or tech has most inspired you?
Ooh, that's a good question. I'd say it changes a lot. Recently, I think it's been a product called Lovable, which is in the AI web front end space, very similar to V0 by Vercel, but it's an AI tool that can generate front end. Well, they say full stack applications, but I think it's best at the front end. And that's always been an area where I struggle at and haven't really taken the time to learn. I'm very much a back end guy. I love serverless functions. And so I think that has made me super excited just to see, where that can take a builder like me or a similar profile and bring them again to the next level and really create that one person army to go do everything.
Yeah. And that's lovable.dev, right?
Yeah. Lovable.dev. Yeah.
Sweet. And then, what advice would you give to somebody who's, newer on their journey to being a builder?
I'd say push through the frustration, persevere. There are definitely times where I get super frustrated when, a small error keeps occurring and I can't figure out what's happening, or maybe I don't know how to use a certain technology and I'm not confident in it. But stay curious, stay uncomfortable, and persevere. And on the other side, if you ultimately failed, you'll hopefully learn something along the way. So I'm very much operate around kind of those pillars.
Nice. I have a little part 2 on a few of those questions. Have some dig deeper. So when you're talking about products, you said it changes all the time. But I guess what makes you like fall in love with the products? Like, what makes a good product to you?
Yeah, that's a good question. What makes a good product to me? I think it's a few things, but ultimately it's utility. Like, can I one, see the utility out of it, and two, get the utility out of it? That is probably the biggest thing. I'm selfish. I want to use products that make me better or make other people better. But yeah, I'd say that's the biggest criterion. I think most of the products I vouch for and love are ones I use every day. So there's some like productivity ones that I'll shout out. AkiFlow, great product. Helps me time block and pull in different tasks and things like that. I'm a big Obsidian user, which is like a notes taking app. That is awesome. All in Markdown, which is nice. Mm-hmm. What else? I feel like utility.
It's just no, I see that. And then this was like a side tangent. This is just more my personal curiosity. I think, working with teams while you're kind of, I like to say, designing the future, what have you learned about both yourself and just like even best practices, right? Like with working with teams, because everyone has a vision, right, of what can be possible. So I'm just kind of curious your POV of like, what have you learned about yourself? And then also what have you learned or how have you grown as you're working on the team to build some cool stuff?
Yeah, I think one thing I'm still working on is when to display your opinion and when not to. I think there are situations where you want to do one or the other, or maybe a mix of both. But I think it's super important in the early stages of like product development is to not really form an opinion and really just be a listener to either customers or people internally to understand where they see things going, and then kind of take all those inputs and further formulate an opinion. But then there are scenarios where it is important to take a stance or have an opinion and be vocal about it. But when you're early on, like you kind of want to put your guard down and really be a fly on the wall and let other people do all the talking. Definitely something I'm still learning, for sure. And then what was the second part of that question?
I think you kind of answered it. I think the second part was just more so like kind of how have you grown in some ways, like what new learnings, but I feel like you kind of answered it in the first part. Yeah.
And it's really like not only internally but externally as well, like trying to find research papers, things like that, like what are other smart people thinking about working on, and use that again as another input into a future opinion or idea, things like that.
Okay.
Awesome.
Got it. Thank you. I love how you we talked about all the things. Like honestly, I'm gonna tell you something that like I literally sent a note to your manager because like I have really appreciated your level of collaboration. Like I literally thought you'd been here for years, and like I'm giving you your flowers on stream because I really just like appreciate just like again the balance of just like, all right, how can I help? Like, and I think some people say like, how can I help? But you're like, no, I'm gonna put the action towards it. And like, I don't know, I think just it's exciting to get that excitement again, right? Of just like, let's build together. Like, how can I help support this? Like, yes, I'm a little biased because you're helping me out on the event this week, but I don't know. I think at many times we've asked you to like, hey, can you help us with this? Like, if you're able to do it, you've done it. So, thank you for that. And like,
of course,
so I just wanted to acknowledge. I appreciate how much you've just like, I don't know, brought the energy.
No, I appreciate it, and thanks for taking me along the way and trusting me to hopefully perform. But no, it's been fun, and I think that's another like learning too is, people say yes to everything, and I think that's a good philosophy, but it is important to say no. And I think there's a book that is like The Art of Saying No.
Yeah.
But for me, it's like I'm gonna say yes to everything until I hit that ceiling, and then I'll start saying no. And I've definitely hit that ceiling pretty quickly.
That's real, especially at Twilio. Oh my gosh.
We're glad we slipped in before you hit that.
Yeah.
Thank you. We're in the yes crew until you. I feel that. Any other thoughts? Any other thoughts, Alex? What you got?
No. Just gonna say thank you so much, Noah. This was so great.
Yeah, definitely. Chat, thank you so much for joining us. As always, if you have questions, feel free to Feel free to ping us.
Discord.
Feel free to Oh yes. Discord.
Hit the Discord.
Find us on Discord. Nice. Let us know what resonated. If you're watching in the future, hope you enjoyed it. If you didn't, I'm sorry for you. We have tons of other videos. But I think this was a good one.
Get in the comments, right? So thank you, Noah. And then Bianca and I will be back. Are you going to be here next week, Bianca?
That's a great question. It's up in the air.
Okay.
Who knows?
Bianca should take some vacation, but I'm definitely going to be here next week. Same time, 2 p.m. Eastern, Twilio Devs Twitch. And I'm going to have a repeat guest, Elmer, come on. And we're just going to build some stuff with AI systems conversation. We're just going to build it because these demos that's going to be next week. Check out.
I'm gonna pause you for a second. Your mic is not letting you be great at the moment. In case you missed it, Alex had kind of mentioned he'll be building with Elmer. I may or may not show up next week. We don't know. Stay tuned to find out. And then we have, as you can see, we have a lot of things happening on good old Twilio. Thursday, we have the developer lens, so we hope to see you there. We have another liftoff watch party Friday. Hopefully, Alex will remember that he was present for said liftoff watch party.
It was a long weekend. Give me a break.
Noted. Anywho, and what else do we have? We have tons of things that are webinars and things like that. Developers.
Thursday, check out TBL. Yeah, developers.twilio.com. Sorry, I interrupted you.
Yeah, developers.twilio.com. You can see all the things that are coming up. And as always, meet us in the Discord. Discord is where you'll see, I don't know. Just meet us in Discord, damn it. So anyways, I'll see y'all, or maybe I won't. Tuesday, 2 p.m. Thank you.
Bye.